Hello and welcome to the Unapologetic Moms Club. I'm your host Janine McKinnon, Women's Empowerment Coach from unapologeticmotherhood.com. I'm a mom of two, community leader, multiple small business owner, and your personal Mama Bear cheerleader. We're here to dig into the deep shit, to help you feel empowered and give you the tools to break free from patriarchal standards and create a life you not only survive, but thrive in. We'll chat self-care, women's health, sex, relationships, plant medicine, personal development, and so much more so you can rock it in your unique mom life and beyond. Without further ado, let's dig in. Hello and welcome to another episode inside the Unapologetic Moms Club podcast. Today I am really looking forward to be welcoming Heiki Khemka, Wayfinder life coach for women, women's circle facilitator, mom, and many other wonderful things, Vita peer as well, to be talking about her journey of self-hate to self-love, specifically relating to breasts and nipples, which I think is something that resonates with many, many women. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation, sharing about that with you. And so welcome, Heike. So happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you for this beautiful introduction, Janine. And so I'm going to introduce myself by telling a few stories. So it's 10 a.m. in the morning, and I'm finding myself sitting on the floor of my beautiful wooden house here in Bali in a circle of 13 women, sensitive, courageous women really showing up to explore their relationships with their breasts and their bodies. Some of them wanting to get rid of the implants that they regret getting, others wanting implants after being a mom of 3 kids and not being able to love themselves anymore. And another woman sharing how her husband may not be attracted to her anymore after the breast cancer destroying her big, beautiful, beautiful, juicy breasts. At 2 p.m. in the afternoon, I find myself sitting in front of my laptop, talking to my client in Europe who is going through challenges in her relationship with her husband, guiding her and finding the courage to express her truth in that relationship. Feeling my heart really so full, knowing that this is what I love doing and feeling that this is what I love doing. At 4 p.m., I can feel the skin, the wind on my skin, walking towards my kids, coming home from green school and knowing what a proud mother I am. And while raising them, I'm raising myself, hoping to leave a little bit more footprints of love on this earth. At 7 p.m., I'm standing in front of an audience at my Toastmasters public speaking club here in Bali, with my legs trembling, my whole body shaking, my heart beating, knowing that I'm about to share the most vulnerable story of my life. And how this one surgery on my nipples really changed my life to hell, but also gave me the opportunity to stare shame in the eye and unlock some deep, deep love from within.
Oh.
So that's me.
Beautiful. And I feel like I'm right there with you throughout your day with the way you told that story and shared those pieces of your day with us. And yeah, what a wonderful way to just help so many different women and the ripple effect that must have with their relationships and the other people in their lives as well. And same with your children.
Yeah.
Let's dive right into the juicy nitty-gritty story then, the vulnerable piece with your journey of self-hate, self-love with surgery mixed in as it relates to your nipples and breasts. So where did that all begin in? Where has your mindset been with all of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Where did that begin? I think I was 19 years old and I suddenly realized that I didn't have those nipples sticking out and mine were pointing inwards. It's called introverted nipples. No, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this name now. Inverted nipples, that's it. And for a few years, I didn't think much about it. And my boyfriends actually never mentioned it. And I had happy relationships. But then there was a time of my life when I was single. I was working in a corporate job. I had lost touch with myself. And I was about to move to India from Germany. And I felt I had to make some like really important decisions before moving. And one of those decisions was like, I need to get my nipples fixed if I ever want to find love again in my life. There's no man that's going to accept me in the future. I'm not going to accept myself unless these ugly nipples are fixed. And I didn't speak to anyone about this. This was like my big, big secret. And I really suffered in silence a lot. There was so much shame, so much judgment, and really so much disconnection and numbness in my body. So I went to see a doctor. And so that was in my early 20s. And he told me, okay, if we're going to do that and work on your nipples so they stick out more, I just want you to know that I have to cut the milk ducts and you probably won't be able to breastfeed later in life. And I was like, okay. I wasn't breastfed. I don't even know if I'll have children. And the self-hate was so big. And the hope to find that love for myself again and be happy in life was even bigger. So I decided to go for it. I still remember lying there on that table, not feeling anything, of course, in my breasts, but it wasn't a general anesthesia. And hearing those sounds of like, it really sounded like ripping those pieces of flesh apart. It was awful. But there was so much hope attached to it and so much willingness to suffer, to get to the other side and hoping to be fixed from the outside. So I recovered from the surgery. I moved to India. And a couple of years later, I was pregnant with my first child. I should say the nipples turned out okay, nothing fantastic, but also not bad. And I was quite okay. I was quite happy. I even had forgotten about it till I got pregnant. And I did find love and I did have an amazing husband. And when I was pregnant, this big, huge trauma all came back to me like a big thunderstorm. And all I wanted to do is being able to breastfeed my child. So I did some research. There's a book on breastfeeding after breast surgery, especially breast reduction surgery and nipple surgery, and how they can grow back, how the milk ducts can grow back. And I did a lot of meditating and visualizing how it can be restored. But after I gave birth to my daughter, my breasts were just full of milk. They were exploding and the milk could not come out. And I wish that somebody could hand me a big needle with which I could poke some holes so my daughter would get this nourishing mother's milk, what she deserved. And at that point, the self-hate and the shame was even bigger than when I started off on this journey and decided to get surgery. So the effect from that surgery and that decision to not love myself and get this fix from the outside had such big repercussions in my life that were really hard to bear.
Wow. What a journey throughout all of that. And it's so interesting, so many different pieces, but how we can get so caught up in these feelings with ourselves and feel like we know what we need to change that will make it all better. And so focusing on that and not necessarily thinking of the big picture of the different repercussions those decisions can make, but thinking that's what we get, or that's what we aim for to get what we want. And then further down the road, like you said, you felt even more shame and self-hate than previously prior to the surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this whole piece of shame, I actually didn't know at that point that it was shame when I first went to the doctor. And then when I had my daughter, I didn't know it was shame. I only found out later, and it all made sense. And now I know that shame really thrives in secrecy. So by keeping things a secret and not sharing about your struggles and pain with others, that shame grows even bigger, and it has so much control and so much power over you. So even when I then gave birth to my child, it was really only my husband who knew about the surgery and why I wasn't able to breastfeed. But anyone else had no clue. Everyone else had no clue, including my own mother, who I'm very close to. And I came up with these stories of how I tried to make it work to breastfeed. And I even had a lactation consultant and a doula. And it just didn't work out for me for whatever reason. And I made up these lies again because I felt so ashamed. And yeah, that story and that decision kept me trapped and small and in fear and in discomfort and in self-hate.
Mm-hmm. And was there kind of a turning up point getting out of that? Or was it like a slow progress? Or did you just simply like have enough and make a change? I'm curious how that was for you.
Oh, there were many pieces to the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I can share some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a journey. It's been a long journey. And on that journey, I discovered different pieces of the puzzle to come to where I'm at today, really feeling full in myself, resourced in love and compassion for myself, and even honoring, my decisions and my journey and having forgiveness and gratitude for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So first, I just sought out some help. Like I worked with a hypnotherapist when it was like acute, when the pain was acute and I couldn't breastfeed my daughter. And every time I looked at her, I felt these tears running down my cheeks, and the shame spiral didn't stop. And then I was crying while feeding her, and I'm like, oh my God, now I'm putting all these emotions on her. So yeah, to answer your question, first I had a professional hypnotherapist helping me out. And then when she was about 1 year old, I started to hire my first life coach ever. Mm-hmm. And that really started to turn things around a little bit in general in my life. And I actually knew at that point that I want to one day become a life coach myself. It opened up the pathway to explore my inner worlds in a safe way, in a safe container, and sharing about how I'm feeling inside, what's going on in my relationship, but mostly what's going on in this relationship with myself. I still didn't have the courage to share about this piece around my breast, even with my life coach, who was so loving and so safe. So it took me a while to share this, even with these professionals. And so with the therapist and life coach, I worked a lot on my childhood as well, and really uncovering layers of what's not true in my life, what's not part of me, what doesn't belong here. And then slowly coming closer to the essence. And I really feel when you look deep inside of you, you really have your own gold mine there. And the more of the layers of illusions and shame and anxiety and programming you remove, the closer you get to the gold. And I removed those layers by life coaching, therapy, and a lot of work in the realms of Tantra. I had beautiful teachers from different lineages connecting me back to my body through pleasure, through awareness, helping me understand that all of it is welcome, all my emotions are welcome, and really growing my capacity in being present with myself, embodying different feelings, learning how to unlock the wisdom that I hold for myself and step into the life that I desire. So it's been a journey of, I think it took me 10 years of doing all this work. And at the end of these 10 years, I decided to share this story in public. And that was the big missing piece. I'm also training to be a certified healing shame practitioner. And through this training, which I've been in for 1 year, I learned so much about shame and how that shame holds us hostage and how that shame makes us react differently. And one of the biggest enemies of shame is curiosity. So when I decided to share this big secret of mine in public, it was the most terrifying moment, but also the most rewarding moment. Mm-hmm. And along this journey, I also became a women's circle facilitator. I understood how when we come together in a safe place and really share all those pieces that we're afraid of sharing, the shame gets smaller. We can be seen in our truth and hold that and overcome these stories and reclaim our power and the love that's inside of us all this time. So yeah, speaking about it, sharing it with others, having the courage to go out there and claim this as my life story after having done all this work has been the biggest piece and the biggest gem and the biggest piece of gold that I found.
That's amazing. Good for you. And I love how you said, like, it's that gold mine within us. It's these things that we have within us, but through doing this work, meeting our emotions, accepting ourselves, working through those layers, peeling back those layers, we get to what's already within that shiny gold mine, that most rewarding thing for doing that big scary thing, sharing your story publicly, and it ends up being the most rewarding and allows you to be that much more in alignment with yourself.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you're in a program to be, I can't quite remember the exact wording for it, but a shame coach in addition to the Vita coaching program as well. You're doing both of them for the past month. So wow, you have a lot on your plate.
My thirst for personal growth, I think, and spiritual growth is always there.
Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that shame piece, because I think it's so helpful, like you said, to bring it to the light and to have more understanding of our inner workings and the different things our listeners might be holding on to, perhaps their little secrets. So I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about it, to share that knowledge so we can have some more awareness of it and perhaps uncover some more of our layers as well.
That's beautiful. So before I'm going to answer that, there's a question that pops into my mind that I was being asked in a workshop. And I would like to offer this question to you and to your listeners, which is, what would you never want to share with anyone else? And really explore that with just a little bit of curiosity. Explore that question. You don't need to, I don't know, have it all figured out or need to be afraid that you need to take out all your secrets now, but just explore it with some loving compassion and curiosity. Notice what's happening inside of you as you do that, welcoming all sensations, emotions, and maybe terrifying thoughts that come to your mind. And that's it. And thank yourself afterwards for exploring that. I think that's a beautiful way of gently approaching those secrets in us that, hold us back in whatever way.
That is a great question. And I love how you touched on like really paying attention to our body and the different sensations that come up. I'm trying to stay present in our conversation, not go off down that thought journey right now, but I will later. But I noticed in my body like a warmth and a heating up just being presented with a question like that.
So the thing with shame is, it's even hard to say that I work with people to help them transform their shame, because I was not aware that what I was experiencing was shame. And often shame is not an emotion that's talked about. The more familiar ones are maybe fear and anxiety, or even self-hate and, I don't know, jealousy, or insecurity. So shame can actually show up in many variations, and there may be moments, all of us have experienced that, but there may be moments where we feel insecure, where we feel embarrassed, where we feel shy. And especially as women, I don't know if you've experienced this, or the listeners, you go somewhere, let's say a dinner party, and you have a conversation or whatever your evening looks like, and you come back home and you feel the conversation is over, but it hasn't ended in your head, and you're still going like, oh, I can't believe I said this, and oh, was it really right to say that? And kind of being hard on ourselves. And that is shame showing up. And shame can tell you, oh, you were too shy with this person. Why didn't you, I don't know, be more outspoken or laugh a little bit more? And you were too serious. And so this can be one expression of how shame can show up. But really in my training, I learned there's mostly 4 reactions to shame. So when we feel shame inside of us, we are either going to attack ourselves, like what I shared just now, or we are going to attack others. It can actually, those of us who are mothers, we understand this very well. Let's say we're in a social situation and our kids do something that really embarrasses us, and we feel deeply uncomfortable inside. And then we say something to the kids that's not really nice. And in that moment, we are attacking them. We're taking the hot potato of shame that we are feeling and we're passing it on to them. And we are shaming them for their behavior. But really, it is our own shame that we are feeling, that we are putting onto others. The other way how shame can show up is we go into denial when we are in an uncomfortable situation. And I don't know, let's say somebody said something hurtful or even abusive. We then go home and go, oh no, it wasn't that bad. Oh no, I must be imagining. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it can show up in that way. And it can also show up as completely withdrawing, wanting to hide, and fawning, when that's also out of a fear and security and losing belonging. When we try to keep this relationship that we're experiencing as unhealthy, somebody says something mean and we're like, oh yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, I understand. Meanwhile, inside of us, we feel so much discomfort and we know it's wrong, but we don't have the strength to stand up and say, no, this is not right. This is shame doing that. Is that clear? Or
yeah, I'd say I can definitely think of different examples of most of those instances. Like, I want to say there's probably 2 conversations I've had like the last 5 years that continuously pop in my head at the randomest times. And I'm still like, oh, shouldn't have said that way. I wish I did that. But I am curious because you touched on all of the other more common or more well-known emotions that we can call negative emotions for simplicity. What is really the difference or kind of defining differences of shame compared to like insecurity or anxiousness? Because that's what I might personally categorize as, say, that example of like certain situation that happened. They'll be like, oh, I wish I handled that differently, and it keep popping up. I'll kind of think of that as either insecurity or anxiousness. So what is that real difference of shame compared to those things?
mm-hmm. So there is fear, and when I feel fear, I experience that sometimes through physical sensations and my heart racing and the need to really act on that and put out the fire, let's say, right? So the danger is gone and being in control again. With shame, the defining thought that drives shame is there is something wrong with me.
Okay, that makes sense.
And sometimes they can bind. The emotion of fear binds with shame. The emotion of anger binds with shame. And sometimes we feel fear and we think we need to act or not act and first calm down or whatever. But then when shame binds with fear, that we're not doing what we need to do because this thought comes in, there's something wrong with us. And when we feel that, we freeze. And then we are unable to do anything, unable to do something, unable to have any access to our logic, unable to act in a way that makes sense. When shame binds with anger, we feel the anger, but we are not allowing ourselves to express it because we think there's something wrong with us if we express the anger. So fear has that quality of there's something wrong with me. Not fear, sorry. Shame has that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense. I'd say that's more clear now with that difference where it's just really tied into something wrong with me compared to worrying about the future or the past. It's okay, that makes more sense.
Brené Brown speaks about it. She's a famous shame researcher, and she makes this distinction between guilt, which is I did something wrong, so that's more related to our actions that we regret, and shame is like there's something wrong with me.
Okay, I appreciate that distinction as well. Because like you touched on with motherhood, and mom guilt is such a common word. And it's worrying that we did wrong during the day or there's something we could have done better. But I see how that is different from thinking something's wrong with us compared to situation could have gone differently. Yeah. So I'm curious for people who are having these different feelings and thoughts and sensations coming up, noticing that they are perhaps holding themselves back in different ways. Perhaps it's that combination with the fear or other ones. Do you have any practical tools or practices or tips that can be helpful for starting to uncover these layers of shame?
Yeah, so my first my first go-to thing is always self-inquiry. Like, if I'm judgmental about a part of my body that I don't like, or even something that I did, or if I'm feeling shame about how I'm being perceived, or any of those things, I ask myself, what do I need to know to be true about myself in order to feel better? Or what would I need someone else to tell me, like a loved one, my partner, or my kids, or my parents, or whoever is available? What would I need them to tell me in order to feel better about myself? And really go and ask for that. It might be a stretch, but it can be so, so magical. And it might feel really strange to your nervous system. But once you receive that and integrate that, it really opens up new doors. So self-inquiry and journaling is always my first action when I'm hitting a block and not understanding what's going on, or when I can't get out of my shame spiral. It's also what I mentioned before, the superpower of curiosity. Curiosity paired with self-compassion and even a sense of humor, if that's accessible, but that might be a stretch. And just kind of like, oh, what I'm doing to myself. Oh my God, I'm in this story of, like, I don't know, beating myself up. And okay, it's that story that I'm in, and noticing my thoughts, and yeah, seeing what I would need to hear instead.
That's such a great trio. Like, the self-inquiry is so, so important. Like you said, it's the superpower, the superhero. But it needs to be paired with that loving compassion, which I'd say is a lot of my focus when I'm doing those sorts of things. And I really appreciate you bringing up the humor as well, because that can really help make things a little bit more lighthearted and allow us to kind of remove ourselves a little bit. It's not so personal if we can see the lightness in the situation.
Yeah. And also, I would also add finding things about ourselves that we love. And that actually brings me to another little story that I would love to share. I really did struggle in intimacy in my marriage, and I had all these thoughts around how I'm not a feeling person, I'm not feeling enough pleasure, I'm certainly not feeling anything in my breasts and nipples in particular, because I had this surgery, and I told myself all these stories about how the sensitivity around my nipples is gone now. And I had many years where I didn't enjoy sex. I didn't feel anything. My body was numb. I felt guilty and ashamed around that. I didn't know how to communicate that to my husband. And I worked through that with relationship therapy and coaching. I ended up eventually getting a divorce, which was amazing, and it set me free. And after that journey, I engaged even more with my pleasure potential, but in really subtle ways. And then I had these experiences where I stood in front of the mirror naked, and I would find things about myself that I loved. And it could be even like very simple things like a dimple, and just many things. And then I actually went to my bedroom and wanted to nourish myself with some oil on my skin and massage myself and give myself some love. And when it came to touching my breasts and feeling gratitude for them, I suddenly experienced that there was so much sensitivity, so much pleasure. And I just stayed curious, and I stayed with the sensation. Of course, the little child inside of me couldn't hold back her excitement about how much sensation there was. And in the end, I had this most beautiful nipple orgasm that rippled out through the rest of my body and went into the universe through my heart. And it was such a profound experience that I
Wow,
never
that
thought I
sounds
would
so
have.
beautiful. Yeah, it's so wild how you can go thinking there's no sensitivity there, feeling so closed off, disconnected, to fast forward at the point of having these expansive nipple orgasms, connecting you with the universe.
Yeah, so the message is it's never about how the body looks or sometimes even feels. It's really more, how do you feel about yourself? How do you relate to yourself? How comfortable are you with connecting with your pleasure and feeling sensations and creating a safe space for that? That's so important.
Absolutely. And I would like to hear more about kind of the potential outcomes. But first, I just really wanted to touch on that mirror work, because I think that is just so, so helpful. I know it's been helpful for me through my motherhood journey, throughout my pregnancies. I just really felt like my body wasn't my own. I had back to back, my kids are 18 months apart, and breastfed each for about a year. So it felt like my body wasn't my own for so long. And with kind of postpartum changes. And what really helped me was doing that mirror work and looking and finding things to love and show appreciation and gratitude for. And it can be very uncomfortable in the beginning, but going through that practice, it can get easier and easier and to really help you connect with yourself. Yeah. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear more about kind of those potential outcomes with cultivating that relationship with your breasts, because I think it is something a lot of women can be closed off of. I know personally I was as well in more of a hypersensitivity and just didn't want anything to do with it. And then through my own personal self-discovery journey, have grown to love having my breasts played with and feeling pleasure through them. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you've noticed, whether that's for yourself or with clients and different women you've held space for and worked with.
Yeah. So the outcome was not just having this amazing breast orgasm by myself on my bed. So that also happened in the bedroom with men, and not just around my nipples, but also around my yoni and how I experience my sensuality and sexuality throughout my whole body. And I really think that there's a big link between unlocking shame, like healing shame, embracing shame, and unlocking our pleasure potential. And not just our pleasure potential, but having that, being in touch with your sensuality brings us back to our essence and to our intuition as women. And when we can surrender to that, we can navigate life in a very different way. And we can use our bodies as a compass, as an inner guide to what's true and what's next, and being in touch with all these sensations and really deeply listening to my body. It shows me, I don't know, who to meet with next, or the sense that I'm getting from people out there, who to connect with and who not to connect with, what to do next in my career, how to parent my children, how to leave a relationship that's deeply toxic or like not aligned with my values. So my body now really talks to me. And I do believe that we all have this. We are all born in bodies that carry so much wisdom and guidance. And this is the, I guess, primal aspect of us and our true nature. And being in touch with that is just such an essential part of my life now and such a gift.
I love that you touched on that. Often people can come into this work, say, wanting to fix certain things. Like you mentioned at the very beginning with your story with the women's circle and worried about these different things. But as we go through facing our shame, feeling our emotions, not only are we unlocking these different pleasure pathways and expansiveness, but we're really building just such an incredible relationship with our body that relates so much to intuition and sensing what's going on and our reactions or what's true to us, what's not, different things like that. It really does come down so much to that relationship we have with our body, so we can notice the different ways it nudges us and tells us different things.
Yeah. And there's one more thing that comes to my mind, which is important for me to say. I don't have big judgments around women going for plastic surgeries. We all make our own choices, and everybody is responsible for their choices. I just wish that everyone would explore a little bit first around what their motives are, where they're coming from. And one part of me feels like I wish that opportunity was not available in this world, because if it hadn't been available, I couldn't have gone for it, right? Mm-hmm. But in today's world, there's so much of that available, right? I mean, to the extreme end of changing your gender and but I wish that maybe the doctor had said, okay, go and see a therapist or a coach and first see if you really truly want this. And it just feels like there's black and white or yes or no decisions that need to be made. And it all comes back to curiosity, compassion for the self, and maybe even some patience in that exploration of how you're treating yourself and where you're coming from.
Yes, absolutely. It really is a big decision, and everyone is welcome to do whatever truly feels right for them. But it's always good to really take time to think and reflect and really see how it resonates for you, how true it is for you, or are these different things you've taken on and learned and feel you need to do things a certain way, and just discovering, like you said, those motivations behind it. I'm curious, because I'm not familiar, how fast was that process? And say, speaking to the doctors, you say you're wanting this, and then surgery time.
Very fast.
Yeah.
I think I went there and 2 weeks later I had the appointment.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you think it would be so helpful to offer at least some sort of conversation around self-discovery, self-reflection for such big changes on things like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time with us today and sharing such a vulnerable story. I really appreciate you doing it. Is there anything else you would like to share before we close off our conversation?
I would really love for all women and all people to love themselves more, to be open to the possibility to explore what shame means to them and how they're experiencing it. Because like I said in the beginning, many people, including me, like we're not aware or aren't aware how shame shows up. And it can be life-changing. And I really would love to see more people allowing themselves to be who they want to be, explore their inner worlds, and reclaim the love and power that really resides in that gold mine within, in all of us.
I love that. So much love and empowerment in the end of that. Thank you.
Mm.
And
It was such a pleasure sharing all of this with you.
Yes, thank you. Me too. And where can our listeners find you to connect with you, see more of what you're about? Yeah.
Okay, in true and authentic and honest style, I have been a little bit ashamed to post more on social media and had quite a process around that. So I do have an Instagram account under my name where I'm going to share more, but I also have a website, which is my name, HeikeKhemka.com, and people can find me there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think social media can be a bit of a love-hate thing for many of us and going back and forth with our posting, but I will make sure to have those links below so our listeners can connect with you. And thank you again for being here today. And thank you for our listeners for listening. Till next time, take care. Thanks for joining us inside the Unapologetic Moms Club. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you feel called, I would so appreciate it if you shared about this episode in your stories or left us a review to help us reach more women on their unapologetic mama journey. As a thank you for your support, you'll be entered into our monthly draw for a free laser coaching session. Just tag @Janine.McKinnon in your story shares or leave the rating or review, screenshot it, and email to Janine@unapologeticmotherhood.com to be entered. One lucky winner is selected every month for a focused coaching session to support you in working towards your current desires. Until next time, you got this.